Some of you know the story, or parts of it anyway. I'm going to start. I'm not going to go through in detail because it would take me a couple hours to probably get through it because my life's been, now that I'm 60, I'm an old man. So it's quite a few years there. I just turned 60 a couple weeks ago. And anyway, um, one of the things when I was a child, my grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and he also had a special blessing that God gave him is that he was able to heal burn victims. And when I say heal a burn victim, he was able to lay hands on them and take all their pain away. And they wouldn't have any more pain from the burn. They would still have the scars and the skin thing going on, but there would be no pain from it. And that he was flown all over the world for this, and in different places, and for many people from many times this took place, and every single time the pain was taken away from these people. And my grandfather, he used to tease me all the time, and of course I'd run around the church with my little suit and telling everybody I was going to be a preacher one day. And it's funny to hear my mom and stuff tell the story, but my grandfather was always telling me that God had a plan for me. And he goes, no matter what you do in life, God's got a plan for you. God's got a plan for you. And that stuck in my head over the years. And um, it really didn't sink home to me until the last few years. But over the years, uh, I've had a few near-death experiences. And during those near-death experiences, I remember this voice telling me that God has a plan for you. And I always related that to my grandfather. And that's relevant as we get into this here, as we go on. But I always related to my grandfather in my head telling me God's got a plan for you. And so no matter, every time these things happening, one of the issues that I had, I was a child. I was like 6 years old, and 6 or 7 years old, and I got mononucleosis. And it was back when I was a kid. Mononucleosis, they didn't know how to treat it. They just threw you in the bed. You fought the fever, or you didn't fight the fever. If you made it through the fever, you lived. If you didn't, you passed away. And so I was quarantined to the home because they wouldn't let you go to the local hospital. I was quarantined to the home, and I can remember lying in my bed and seeing these bright lights going through, would crisscross across my room. And I never knew what they were. And but I remember seeing them, even though I had a very high temperature. And from what my mom had said, I was like almost in a coma, that I was completely out of it. My temperature was so high. And at one point, the doctor was talking to my mother, and they were discussing that if my fever doesn't break soon, that the chances of me surviving were going to be fairly slim. Well, when I heard this, or actually, I didn't hear this, I seen this. Um, I was in this bedroom, and my mom and dad and the doctor were in the dining room on the other side of the house. And I seen them having this conversation from my bedroom. I was out of it. But I was literally in the corner of that kitchen looking down on them, watching them have this conversation. And then after the conversation happens, I'm back in my room, I see this white light, and then I hear this, you have nothing to worry about. God has a plan for you. So I'm thinking, okay, grandpa's there. Grandpa's going to take care of me. Now, at this time, my grandpa's still alive, right? So we go on through the years, and I don't know, I was in middle school, I guess it was. And my I was playing football, and we're on the practice field, and I had one of the best practices I ever had in my life. It was just a major practice, and I was out there just doing what Gene does to people, just killing them. But unfortunately, it was practice, so I was hurting my own players. I mean, I would literally crack a whole helmet in half. That's how hard that we were hitting that day. And towards the end of practice, we all grouped up in the middle to huddle up, and I started running over to the thing, and I collapsed, and that was the last thing I remember. I woke up in the hospital, and of course, I was young at that time, so I didn't know what was going on. But apparently, what had happened is I had appendicitis, and my appendix ruptured, and my spleen was seeping, and I had all these issues and from what the doctor said, that had my father not done what he did, who my father, I didn't even know was at the practice. He just happened to show up at my practice. He got off work early one day and showed up at my practice early. And it just so happened at the time he showed up, we were gathered together. He seen me fall down. He picked me up, threw me in his truck, and took me to the hospital. Had he not been there, they said that an ambulance would not have been able to save me. I wouldn't have had enough time. So I spent that time in the hospital with that, and it was pretty bad. And then I had a couple other instances. One in the Marine Corps, where I took the advice of a medic, and I had chickenpox, and I was going to lose my orders to Hawaii. I had orders to Hawaii. Gene areas, this Florida boy going to go to Hawaii and serve the military. And I was at school, and I got chickenpox. And the medic in the hospital told me that the fastest way for me to get out of here was all my chickenpox had to scab over. So I'm like, So I'm thinking to myself, what did he mean by that? They have to scab. That means they have to be popped, right? So I took and popped I took a syringe out of the nurse's station that night, and I popped all my chickenpox. And within 24 hours, I ended up with an infection, and the infection almost killed me. And I was on a breathing machine, and my mom, at first it wasn't serious because I was in just for chickenpox. So she was in Florida, but then it gets serious because dummy Gene goes and does this with a needle, and they end up, she flies out, and so they start giving me medication. A few days I start getting better, and of course during this time, at the time where I was the worst, where the infection was at its worst, I was real delirious, they said, whatnot. But and they're telling me how delirious I was, but I could always hear my grandfather in the background going, God's got a plan for you. You're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. You got a plan for you. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just made a mistake. I probably shouldn't have done this. I'll never do this again, So we move on. And then the next near-death experience I had was in 1992 in Florida. I was in Cape Coral, Florida, is where I was living at the time, and I went over to Miami to visit some friends. And then on the way back from Miami, I stopped at this place and got some food. And I ended up getting, I don't know how many of you heard about 1992, the big salmonella outbreak in Florida. There was 109 cases of salmonella in Florida, and 91 of the 109 cases died. Well, I was number 107 that survived. And I was driving in an intersection, and all of a sudden it just hit me. I started feeling this pain in my stomach. And then the next thing I know, the last thing I remember was being able to put the car in park, and the door, me falling out into the street. And I remember nothing else after that. And like a week, it was a week later that I woke up from a coma. I was in a coma, and the doctors had no idea what was going on with me the first few days, but then they figured it out as I was in the hospital. And I again watched the conversation take place with my mom, my dad, at the nurse's station inside the hospital, and the doctor telling them that your son's never going to be the same again. That he's going to have to rethink it, learn everything. He'll never be able to think like he used to. That he is just I had 111 temperature at one point over 2.5 days. And for 4 days, the lowest my temperature got was 107. And they had written me off and said that I wasn't, that I would be brain dead when I came back. And I was listening to this conversation take place outside my room. And again, a voice comes to me again. Everything's going to be okay. God's got a plan for you. And then it was shortly, I guess a day or so after that, my temperature broke. And they were doing me ice baths, having to go on ice baths like every hour to 45 minutes to an hour. I was in an ice bath for 15 minutes and then out. And then for 15, they do it for like 3 hours and then they'd stop for 4 hours and then start the ice baths all over again. And because my temperature just wouldn't go below 107. Finally, they broke the temperature. And 2 weeks in the hospital, a week in a coma, I lost 52 pounds. That's how bad I was sweating. It was unbelievable. I was just drifting away. And and when it was over, it was like, wow. I said to my mom, I said, "This one heck of a weight loss program, huh?" She's like, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with his brain." They knew right then everything was going to be good. So fast forward 2013, probably one of the worst years of my life. I went to work, sat down in a metal folding chair, and this metal folding chair snapped at the legs and fell. And the way I landed, it landed perfect where my buttocks hit the ground perfect where my spine was jammed up and my neck snapped and I broke my neck. And I fell off the cafeteria floor 3 feet down to another floor and I broke my neck. And I remember falling off the cafeteria floor because I was sliding, but I don't remember anything after that. I woke up, that happened on a Monday. I woke up Thursday and I was in a coma and due to the pressure on my spinal cord. And I just happened to wake up and I see my mom's there, all my kids are there, and they call the doctor. Doctor comes in and I'm trying to. I knew something was wrong because I'm talking and I'm trying to move my hand. I'm trying to move my feet. And nothing's happening. Nothing's moving. And the doctor comes in and explains that I was paralyzed and that they're going to start now that I'm awake, and they're going to start doing therapy, and so I can learn how to use this chair with this blow tube on it and all this other stuff. And I looked at my mom and I said, that's not going to happen, right? And she just starts crying. Oh, you just think about it. You're going to think about it. So doctor leaves the room and we're talking about it. And in that short amount of time he was in there explaining to me, all I was thinking about is how I was going to kill myself because I'm not going to live this way. It wasn't meant for me to live this way. And I told my mom I was going to find a way to kill myself. So then the doctor came back in the next morning, Friday morning. That was Thursday. So Friday morning, doctor comes back in and my mom tells him, she goes, look, he's probably not going to live through the weekend. So if there's anything you can do for him, you need to do it for him. And he starts laughing. He goes, well, what can he possibly do? And I said, well, I'm sure I can find my own way out of this world. I said, you can't stop me from biting my tongue off and drowning in my own blood. It's just I can't move. And he's like, you do something like that? He goes, what kind of man are you to even think about something like that? And I said, well, I'm the kind of man that shouldn't be in this bed right now. I said, I don't understand why I'm suffering like this, and why at that time I was all, why God, why God, why God did this to me. And just as clear as we're all on this call, when I said that, he answered me back and said, God's got a plan for you. And don't give up. And the doctor left. He goes, well, give me 24 hours. Doctor comes back the next day. He says, hey, I got this, I found a surgery that's been done 3 times in the United States. He goes, it's never worked. He goes, one time it worked 30%. The other 2 times it didn't work. The people are still in wheelchairs. And I'm like, well, heck, well, why not? Let's give it a try. I go, it's better than just laying here. And he said, okay. So what I didn't know was this was some kind of thing like the University of Florida and all, because it had never worked before. They came in, they had cameras and all kinds of, it was kind of crazy, actually. Well, they come in and they do the surgery. I'm right out of surgery. And I get out of surgery, I go recovery room. And then from the recovery room, they take me to my room. So I go to my room and I'm laying there in bed, and my mom and my daughter, my youngest daughter, were standing at the foot of the bed. And they were like looking at me. They're talking to each other. They're thinking that I'm not hearing them. But I was hearing them. And then I kind of opened my eyes, and of course my mom's like, oh, he's awake. And they called the nurse. The nurse come in and she starts asking me questions. I'm like, yes, I'm awake. I'm fine. And I said, so how soon can I start walking? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, it's time for me to start walking, isn't it? I go, the surgery's over. She goes, oh, you need some recovery. You need this, you need that. And I go, well, didn't they say they put all these rods and stuff in me so that that's better than bone, right? I said, so I can start walking. They're like, no, you don't understand. It's more delicate than that. So the nurse leaves the room, and I look down at my mom. My mom's sitting at the foot of the bed crying, and I moved my toe. I said, Mom. She goes, what? I said, look at the foot of the bed. And she seen me move my toe. I said, now get me out of this bed. And she's like, no, we can't do that. I said, get me out of this bed. So they helped me stand up, and I took my IV pole and walked right out the door, right down the middle of the aisle, until all of a sudden the nurses see me and they all come around, oh my God, oh my, and the doctor and everybody, and they get me back to the room, and I knew, okay, I won't do that again. I just wanted to prove to you that I'm going to be walking soon. And so I left the hospital, and here I am today. I have a rod in my neck. I can only turn my head so far to the left, so far to the right, and up and down. That's it. There's no finishing a soda without leaning back at the waist. You can't just lean your head back and do it. So, but that was the day, and all during that time, and what stood out to me the most was the day the doctor stood there, and the day that when I heard what I thought was my grandfather's voice telling me that God has a plan for you. You're going to be okay. Well, man, so that was a big day. That was 2013. I had some in 2019. I'll briefly go through this one. 2019, 2000. Well, no, I won't briefly go through this one. This is another major one that happened in my life. In 2019, December 15th, 2019, Jeanette and I were planning a trip to be with her cousins in New York for Christmas, the Hans. And some of you guys know the Hans. I mean, I don't know if Jeff does, but they're Jeanette Lee's cousins, and Jen and Esther Hahn. So we went there. We were getting ready to leave for Christmas. I had one more doctor's appointment to find out some test results, and which was on the 15th. we had the appointment on the 15th and we were leaving on the 15th. So the morning of the 15th, I'm at the doctor's office and I get diagnosed with prostate cancer. And sorry. The so I get home, I tell Jeanette, and she goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I go, "Well, no, I want to go on this trip. I want to go. I want to go to New York. I want to be with family. I want to go." And she said, "Okay." Well, I said, "I just asked. We don't tell anybody." She said, "Okay, we won't tell anybody." She said, "Nobody will know." And so I wanted to keep it quiet. So I had talked to the doctors, and we scheduled. I had 2 tumors that needed to be removed to try and help the process of the prostate cancer. And so they scheduled the tumors to be removed on January the 4th. So right after the holiday. So I had that appointment scheduled. So when we got back, we said, what we do is I'll go have the surgery and then we'll let everybody know that I have the prostate cancer and that I've had 2 tumors removed and now we're going to be treated with radiation. So this is what we decided to tell the family, or when to tell the family. So we go to Christmas and we have this just wonderful Christmas at the Hans, and it was just amazing. And so we're cleaning up Christmas Day Eve, and I was helping clean up, and so Esther's mom was there, Ruth, and she was helping clean up too. And then so she got ready to leave, and her husband had went somewhere. He come back to pick her up, and so she got ready to leave. She leaves to walk out the door, and I said, "Here, let me." She had all these bags in her hand, and she's trying to carry them herself. So I went over and said, "Here, let me help you with the bags." And so I grabbed all the bags, and she put her shoes on, and outside we went and put the bags in the trunk of her car. And I tell them Merry Christmas and thanks for everything. And she gets in the car and they get ready to pull away. And I'm standing in the front yard and the car stops. And she rolls the window down and she goes, "Can I pray for you?" This is Ruth. This is Esther's mom. She says, "Can I pray for you?" And I'm like thinking, okay, she's supposed to pray for me because I know they were all very religious and this and that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you can pray for me. I'm thinking she's gonna roll up the window and go on down the road in the car, but the door slings open and she jumps up into the middle of the yard and she starts patting me, and she's patting me all over the body, just patting me. I mean, just everywhere, just patting me, and then she patted me in my private area, and I had this pain. Just it was like a joyful pain. I mean, it was unbelievable pain that just went through my body, and I felt it just exit the corner of my eyes. It just came out right, just shot like, I mean, it just came. I can't explain it. It just shot, and then I got dizzy and I started to fall. And she grabs me and hugs me and stands me up, and she looks me right in the face and says, "All better now. Bye-bye," and gets in the car and leaves. Just like that. I had no idea that she was a pastor, number one. I didn't find that out until afterwards. But here's how I found out what she did for me, or what God did for me. I go to surgery on the 4th. It's 4:00 in the morning. Doctor comes in, "Hey, Mr. Allen, how you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. Corporal Allen calls me and says, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." He goes, "You ready to get this thing taken care of?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "All right, we're going to have him come in, get some more pictures, just make sure nothing's moved around, blah, blah, blah." He's going on and on. In comes the sonogram lady. She's down there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes going by. I'm going, what's going on here? She gets frustrated. She gets up and leaves the room. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? She comes back in with this other technician. He's down there and he's doing the same thing. They both leave the room. About 5 minutes later, the doctor comes in the room. He's got my chart in his hand. And he's going, "What's your first and last name?" I'm looking at him like, "What's going on, doc?" He goes, "I just got to make sure we got something right here." I go, "What do you mean you got something right?" And he goes, "We're having a little issue getting," and as soon as he said, "We're having an issue getting pictures," I thought back to Ruth praying for me and what happened to me. And I broke down and I started crying. And I just broke down. I started crying. I said, "Doc," I said, "You're not going to find it. It's gone. It's gone." I go, "A lady prayed for me over the Christmas holiday, and I believe she prayed this sickness out of my body. It's gone." And I was in tears there. And he goes, "Oh no, let's not get ahead of yourself." He goes, "Let's do this." He goes, "Let's take a blood test." He says, "I want you back in my office tomorrow at 3 o'clock." He goes, "And then we'll talk about what avenue we're going to take on getting this treated." And I said, "Well, I don't think you need to do that." And he goes, No, that's just," I said, "Okay." So they took a blood test. Well, my PSA level in on their scale, they have a 0 to 20 scale. And my PSA level was a 16.95. With radiation treatment, that could go down about 2 points per 30 days, according to what the doctor told us. So even if I was on radiation at that time, it could have went from 16.95 to 14.95 or somewhere there around. Yeah, right. So I show up the next day. I get in his office. Nurse puts me in his office, closes the door behind her. She walks out, and then here comes the doctor. Doctor comes in, closes his door, and he locks it and sits down in front of me. And he says, "Can we pray together?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "There is no explanation for what happened to you, Mr. Allen, except for God changed your life." And it was amazing. He goes, "Your PSA level came back today. It's a 2.1. The normal range is 2.1 to a 4.0. That's the normal range. So I had no trace of cancer whatsoever left in my body. And it was just amazing how that happened. Well, that was in 2019. And then in 2021, again, the during that time frame, I didn't hear that God has a plan for you. You know, I didn't hear that at all during there because there's really no life-threatening issues there that happened. I don't know. Maybe I was unconscious. I hear that or whatever. I was thinking maybe my grandfather gave up on me. But actually, I went in 2021. This is the year I met James. But in November of 2021, I went to visit a friend of mine. This is a friend of mine in Virginia Beach. I had a few too many to drink, and I fell down a 3-story flight of stairs, and I hit my head and went unconscious and had another out of body experience. And I was watching these paramedics revive me, bring me back to life, and I was watching the two paramedics, and I seen my friend's girlfriend standing at the door watching them, and I'm watching them revive me on the ground, and I'm watching this take place, and of course I get that calm feeling again that everything is going to be okay. God had a plan for me. But the next day, when I guess I woke up around noon, apparently the paramedics and all, well, I didn't know there were paramedics there at first. So I go upstairs, and my friends are all up there, and they're all looking at each other like, "What's going on?" And I'm like looking around like, "What's going on with you guys? What's going on in here?" And I said, "Gosh, I had the weirdest dream." And they were like, "Yeah, what was your dream?" And I said, I had a dream that I was in your bathroom floor and I had a heart attack or something. And they were trying to revive me. And everybody's face just dropped. And they're all looking at me going, Gene, you don't know what happened last night? I go, what? What do you mean? Because you fell down the stairs and you hit your head and you weren't breathing. We had to call 911. He goes, that wasn't a dream. He goes, there were people here working on you. And then when they got you back, you snapped out of it and refused to go to the hospital. So we've been watching you all night. I'm like, but during that time of me watching myself and during it, I guess until they woke me up, I had those same words hit me again about God's got a plan for you. You know, it's not your time. You're not going anywhere. God's got a plan for you. So so they're telling me what happened. And it was quite interesting how I could tell them what happened because I was watching it happen to me when it happened. I was completely in the corner of that bathroom watching myself being saved. It was quite interesting. I was in pretty bad health during that time frame too. I was 300 and some odd pounds, 324 pounds, using a walker, getting ready to have knee surgery in the next year, 2 knee surgeries, a hip surgery, a shoulder surgery. Mark, you remember I was moving around pretty bad. Yep. And so over Christmas, we were this year too. We went back to New York for another Christmas. This was 21, and Jeanette was having lots of pain and going through a lot at that time, and she had a issue with her neck, her back, and so Jen Han, he comes into the room and he says, I got this friend of mine. His name is James. He says, just you if you don't feel comfortable, I understand, but let's get him on the phone and let him pray for you. It's worth it. It's worth it. Just see how God works. And so Jeanette and I look at each other. She's like, okay, call him. So he calls James. Of course, James is there for him. He gets on the phone, and I'm in this room. This is Jen's extra room in his house where his office is. And I'm sitting in a bed, and I'm probably good 7.5, 8 feet away from Jeanette. And James is on the phone with Jeanette, and Jeanette's got the phone to her ear. And I think they first prayed about her neck. I think it was her neck, right? And then yeah, so they were praying about her neck, and then after that was the back. But so the neck, and I'm on the bed, and I can hear her talking to him, but I can't hear him talking to her because she's not on speakerphone. But I could feel the heat from the phone 8 feet away. It was so much heat coming from her, that from that phone, from her, just that area was just I mean, it just filled me with just so much. It was just so incredible of what it done to me and inside my heart as he's praying for her. And then I see her put the phone down and go like this. And she hasn't, I mean, and then she's going like this. I mean, she's slinging her head back and forth and doing this and doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? She was, oh my God, he healed me. He healed me. So they prayed about something else. And then she's running around through the house. And it was so crazy because Jen was like, oh my gosh, because now she's in a walker too. And she went from all that, she's running through the hallway and she's running around and she's like moving her head and dancing and just, I mean, it was, oh my gosh, it was so incredible. And she comes back in Here, hands me the phone. I said, what's this? He wants to talk to you. And this was the first time I met James. And James said, I understand you're having some problems. And I go, yeah. And I said, I'm getting ready to have some knee surgery. And I think the knee was the first one, right? Or was it shoulder first? I think it was shoulder first. Yeah. So I'm getting ready. I have a torn rotator cuff. I haven't been able to do a push up in 20 plus years. And so he goes, well, place your hand on your shoulder. And I got him on the phone and like this. I got my hand on my shoulder and he prays for me. He goes, now lift your arm. And I'm like, whoa, what just happened? What's going on here? He goes, now do a push up. Put the phone down. I get down to the ground. I go, one. I go, oh my gosh. And I'm like 20. I'm like, not stopping. I go, what's going on here? I'm like, oh my God. I get back on the phone and I'm like, oh my gosh. And he goes, yeah, God heals you. He goes, what's your other problem? My knee. So put your hand on your knee. Put my hand on my knee, praise for my knee. Boom. Now squat down. I'm like, I haven't squatted in 20 years. I probably couldn't get up out of it. And I was in a walker when I went there. I get over there and I squat. I'm like, this is crazy. And I stand up and I squat down. I stand up and I squat down. I stand up and I squat down. And it was just so amazing at how God came into my life right then. And then all this time, all these years, all these things happened to me, started just coming back into my vision after this happened. Days after, it just kept, I'm like, every day I'm getting a new thing. Well, you know what? So was it, and then I got to thinking about it. And then James calls me. This was on February, or he texts me, are you available to talk? I think it was February like the 12th or 14th or 16th. And I said, yeah. I call him right away. And then I was just having these conversations with myself about what I had been going through. And he calls me or texts me out of the blue. And so we get on the phone and we start talking about these surgeries that I have coming up. And he's like, I feel you could cancel them. He goes, I'm not going to recommend it. He goes, I'm going to recommend you talk to your doctor first. He goes, but I don't think you need them anymore. So I go, well, I got other issues. And what are the other issues? And he goes, I know you said you're on a bunch of medication. Now, I was on 35 meds at the time. And PTSD meds, pain meds, 4 different narcotics. I was on a lot of stuff. And he goes, I can pray and God will fix you. He goes, God will make you better, make you better than you were before. I said, well, let's do it. So he prays for me. And first he prays for me for the hip and the surgeries that I have that I wouldn't need them. And the hip pain went away instantly. So we pray about the medicine and everything. And when he's done, he says to me, he goes, look, he goes, I can't tell you, and I'm not going to tell you to just go off your medication. He goes, because that wouldn't be the right thing to do. He says, you need to really talk to your doctor about this. And this was about 7:15 at night, I believe. And I usually take my night medicine about 8:15. And I got done with the phone call with James. And he prayed over me and prayed for a complete, and I'll never forget it, a complete DNA healing to completely restore my DNA. And when I hung up that phone, I felt God's presence with me, beside me, in me. Just, it was so incredible. So I lay there and it's about time to take medicine. I got up, I walked to the bathroom to take my medicine. I looked at all those bottles and something told me, don't take it. and I walked away from it. The next morning I woke up, I looked at those bottles, don't take it. I walked away from it. I called him that day. I said, James, I texted him. He goes, yeah, I can talk. I call him. I go, look, I said, I'm not taking the medicine. And he asked me how that came about. And I told him, I said that something told me not to take it. And I'm perfectly fine. I don't have any, right now, I don't feel bad. I don't feel, normally if I didn't take my PTSD meds one night, I'm going nuts all through the night, can't sleep. And I had the best night of sleep I ever had, that I can remember anyway. So we went into the next day goes, the next day goes, a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and I'm on no meds now, except for one. I had to take I did break out again for my allergy. So I took my allergy medicine. That was it. And I had not one withdrawal from any of the narcotics. And we're talking about medication I've been on for years and years and years. I mean, and it wasn't weak medication either. And it's things that you're supposed to wean yourself off of. And I went completely cold turkey and never had one withdrawal, never had one upset stomach, never had, to this day. And it's just been amazing. And to this day, I can run now, I can walk now, I can squat now, I can, if Mark came into town, I could go hiking with him. I mean, it's just been, I played basketball. It's just been amazing what's happened to me since this then. That was in February of 2021. And it was that moment, that week, that I figured out that all those years of my grandfather telling me that God's got a plan for you. It wasn't my grandfather. It was God sitting behind the door, wanting me to open that door, wanting me to step through it and accept him as my Lord and Savior, and to walk the way he walks. And my life changed that week forever. And it's just been an amazing, amazing ride. You know, that was God talking to me all those years, not my grandfather. That's my amazing path. And it's just gotten better since then. God's blessed me in so many ways. He's blessed me with being able to heal others, and he just heal others through me.
You gotta talk about your first healing.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
For you,
So
yeah.
so my first healing was it just so happened on the same day that I was baptized. And that was September of 21, right? Or
So. Yeah. Sometime, yeah.
Yeah, so in September, it was in September, I know that. And so I wanted to be baptized. I wanted James to be a part of it. And so we did it. We went there to New York and we did it on the beach. And there was a lot of people there. And so I get baptized, and I don't actually remember much of it from the time that I left the water to when I was laying on the beach. I know that I ended up laying on the beach, but because there were so many things going on, and I couldn't open my eyes for one, and that was weird, right? I couldn't open my eyes, and
I could tell you one thing. When we were praying, you started trembling, and you fell backwards. So we had to lay you down on the beach. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah,
and then we started keep praying for you to be filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and I could the day before, James and I had prayed together, and I had seen a vision of two silhouettes, and I couldn't make out those silhouettes. But on the day that I was baptized, and when I was lying on the beach, I was touched by one of them, and when they touched me, that vision just came so clear to me again, and it was me as a boy talking with a silhouette of Jesus, or what I presume Jesus to be. And it was so clear, crystal clear. So when that was all over, we got up and got cleaned up. James says to me, and we were talking, and he's about how amazing everything was, this and that, and he goes, you can heal people too. And I'm like, thinking to myself, oh, okay, it's a little fast for this. He goes, no, it's really. So I walk over to a gentleman that was with us. Him and his wife were there, and he had back pain, lower back pain, sciatica. He was looking around on the beach, and I asked him if I could pray for him, and he said yes. And he was also the family was part of the small group at one time, I believe. And so I pray for him, and he stands up, and he starts moving his leg, and this big smile comes over his face. And he starts moving around. He goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. He goes, the pain's completely gone. And at that point, it was, I could just feel, I felt tears of joy, just so pure inside. And it's a feeling that I haven't forgotten, or that I feel almost every day of my life now, and especially when I'm praying or reading the Bible, and which is an everyday thing. But yeah, that was the first time I laid hands on somebody, and God healed them, and it just, from that moment on, my life, there's been hundreds of those yeah God moments, hundreds of those people reaching out to me every day. Somebody reaches out to me online every day. I get on a Zoom call with them. I go on Facebook Live with them. I do, whatever. I call them, or they'll call their family members, and we'll get on a three-way and pray. And it's like this, it happens so much now that it's just part of my life. And it's a more important part of my life than anything else. And it's so amazing that I wish I could just find a way I could just give more of myself and more every day, and just show more love to people, and get people out there, and let them see that this God can truly change their lives, and just gain somebody else. Just that God could just truly change their life. And if he may not do it today, it may be that kid that was on that football field that day. That's the first time the door was open, maybe. Or the door was cracked and I didn't open it. And it took me this many years to open it. But now that I got it open, it's not getting closed. So I'll walk with God every day. But that's my story. There's more, but that's good enough.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's incredible what God's been doing in your life. Even when as you say, that you didn't know that door was open, you didn't walk into it, and yet God was in your life the whole time. And I mean, for someone like myself who hears all these miracle that comes out of you, in your life, with God, yes, these things are incredible. But what amazes me most is your heart for people, how you truly care and love for people, And as you reach out to them, God is with you, and God is willing to touch those people as well. And that's truly amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing.